and welcome to this week's edition of The Message. I'm your host, Donatus King. We'll spend this next hour with one purpose in mind, and that one purpose is delivering the message that God is Almighty. Everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be was made by God. Everything that ever happened is happening right now, or ever will happen, was made to happen by God. God is the master plan for all time and all creation. God is Almighty. I know we've just started the show, but we're going to have to take a brief break, and we'll be back maybe in about 90 seconds here on The Message. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Suffer from drug or alcohol addiction sometimes say hurtful things. They drive the people who love them most away. If you know someone who suffers from drug or alcohol addiction, listen. Try to hear what they are really saying. Know that there is hope and help them find their voice again. For drug or alcohol treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
We train to any environment, any situation. It could be up on a mountain, on a cliff, it could be in the ocean, it could be a dive mission, it could be out in the desert or the jungle, Arctic, and that's what makes us unique. The motto of the pararescuemen is that others may live. When you go and you rescue these people, the look on their faces is extremely gratifying, and that's the reward in itself. I'm Captain John Fish, and very proud to be a member of the Air Force Reserve.
For a free booklet on the dangers of smoking, contact the Will Rogers Institute.
My name is Juliet Allen, and I've been here since 1960. And this is my home, my new home, which was replaced after Katrina and the levees failed. But all my neighbors, there are so many of them that we all lost our homes at that time. But with the Lord's help, they'll be back too, and He'll give it a try. I hope this never happens again, though. We need the 829 investigation. It's so important. Our lives depend on it.
Home invaders least wanted. Could you be the next victim? American cockroach spreads 33 bacteria and 6 parasitic worms.
And I can trigger asthma attacks.
House mouse contaminates food and transmits disease.
He's lying. Do I look like that kind of girl?
Bedbug feeds on human blood and can cause itchy welts.
Oh, yeah? What are you gonna do about it?
Here's what. Arm yourself with the facts at pestworld.org.
Every child is curious. George, look what I found. Turn their curiosity into a lifelong love of learning.
That's a periscope.
It's one of the most important gifts you can share. Create a curious reader.
Oh, you want to build a castle like that one? This is super bedtime reading.
Share a book together today. Visit read.gov.
Yeah, but did you see how much he had to drink last night? I can't believe that guy made it home. Nobody drives drunk anymore. Hold on, I got another call coming in.
While drunk driving rates have dropped greatly, negligent driving and speeding fatalities have skyrocketed. Someone dies every 13 minutes from negligent driving, so keep your hands on the wheel, your eyes on the road, and your phone put away.
Zydeco to me is my life. I grew up listening to this music and said, this don't look too hard to do. My Louisiana is a lot of things. Coming out to the Blue Moon, po' boys at Old Time Grocery. For the best crawfish, you gotta come to my house. We got a saying, tous les jours c'est pas la même chose, which means every day is not the same thing. This area is about having a good time no matter what's going on. I'm Terrence Simeon and this is my Louisiana.
Kids today are full of video games, computers, and cell phones. It's too much of a good thing. Get some nature into your kids. Fill them full of natural wonders, like watching the bald eagle soar, ride the rivers, fish the streams. This weekend, fill your family with the wonders of nature at a national wildlife refuge near you. Many are within an hour's drive. For locations, visit fws.gov/refuges.
America is turning over a new leaf. The SmartWay leaf from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The SmartWay leaf will help you identify environmentally friendlier cars and trucks that can save you money. These vehicles are certified to be more fuel efficient and produce fewer greenhouse gases. And look for renewable fuels to improve our energy independence. Follow the leaf to epa.gov/smartway.
Never speak to strangers. Don't give your name, address, or telephone number to someone you don't know. And always tell me if something or someone frightens you. These are rules we give our kids to keep them safe even when we're not around.
Did you know that the same advice applies to the online world of the internet? Children can be lured into dangerous situations even in the safety of our own homes. Please talk to your kids about how to stay safe online. For tips and information, go to www.ikeepsafe.org.
I took a trip to Elkhart, Indiana today. Elkhart's a place that has lost jobs faster than anywhere else in America. The people who've lost them have no idea what to do or who to turn to. In fact, local TV stations have started running public service announcements that tell people where to find food banks, even as the food banks don't have enough to meet the demand.
Welcome back to The Message. I'm your host, Donatus King. We'll spend this next hour with one purpose in mind, and that one purpose is delivering the message that God is Almighty. Everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be, was made by God. Everything that ever happened, is happening right now, or ever will happen, was made to happen by God. God has a master plan for all time and all creation. God is Almighty. The message is brought to you by, is produced by the Society of Knowledge Incorporated. The Society is an interdenominational religious spiritual organization. Our members come from various different religious and spiritual backgrounds. We have various different religious and spiritual beliefs. Although we come from different backgrounds and have different beliefs, there's one belief that we share. There's one piece of knowledge that we hold in common, and that's the knowledge that there is a being. By no matter what name we may have been taught to call that being, by no matter what name we may have come to know that being, whether that name be God, Allah, Yahweh, Jesus, Buddha, Jehovah, nature, by no matter what name, we know that there's a being that possesses not some of the power, not most of the power, but all of the power. We know that there is indeed an almighty being. That's the reason we do this show, and the only reason we do this show, to deliver the message that that being that personally I call God, that being is indeed Almighty. Today is May the 3rd, 2018. I remind that fact because tonight, as we are on most Thursdays, we are live. And I remind you of that fact because this show is an open discussion. It's a two-way conversation. For those of you that are watching on TV, you see the telephone number that's on your screen. I invite you to use that number, call in and join the discussion. If there is something that's going on in your mosque, your church, your masjid, your temple, your place of worship, and you want to let the world know about it, call in and let the world know about it. If there's something that's going on in your nonprofit organization and you want to let the world know about it, call in and let the world know about it. If there's something that's going on in your life, more important than what's going on in your place of worship, more important than what's going on in your nonprofit organization, if there's something that God has done for you in your life, a miracle that God has worked in your life, I invite you to call in, share your testimony with the world. Let the world know that God is indeed almighty and that in the year 2018, God is working miracles. So call in and join the discussion. Call in, share your testimony with the world. We've got started a little bit slow this evening because we've been having some technical difficulties with our Facebook Live feed, and hopefully by next week we'll have that worked out and we'll be back live on Facebook. But until then, we're going to continue with our show tonight. We'll go through our announcements, then we'll go through our testimonies. Following that, we'll go through our religious spiritual study, and as always, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. After that, we'll go, and tonight we'll be talking about the nation of gods and earths, the 5 percenters. That's what we will be discussing tonight. And following that, we will have our words of inspiration. And our words of inspiration will be coming out of the book of Genesis, chapter 47, verses 22 through 31. So that's what we'll be doing tonight. And let's go right into our announcements. That's www.godisalmighty.org. That is our main website. I invite you to visit our main website, to lock that website into your web browser. And 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can visit that website and see previously recorded episodes of the message. And there are links to all of our social media platforms, our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. So lock it into your web browser. Rock of Ages Ministries International, Apostle Ronnie Bailey, www.ronniebailey.com. Lock that one into your web browsers. Peacekeepers of New Orleans, their phone number, 504-500-1706. If you know someone that's having a dispute, here in the city of New Orleans area, you can give them a call and they will come out and help mediate that dispute. Call 311 from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. for free smoke detectors in the New Orleans area. Dillard University senior citizens, they are sponsoring a reduced lunch price for senior citizens, and that number is 504-816-4959. Our testimonies, and we do have a testimony tonight, and we will go through that one right now. And you know, we're going to stop that because I failed to pick up the sound. I forgot that we had this video, so we're just going to have to replay that one again next week. Okay, our religious spiritual study, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. Coming out of 1 Book of Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. Tonight, we are going to discuss the nation of gods and earths, the 5 percenters. Now, that's something that I was unaware of, and I'm trying one more thing here before as we get started, and I'm trying, this is live TV. This is live TV, and I'm trying to work on getting our Facebook Live working. So just bear with me. All right, every week we've been having some great participation on Facebook Live. So that's why I'm taking a minute now to try to get this done. And this is something that, sometimes we have to slow down. And we have to slow down because the Almighty wants us to slow down. So that's what we're doing now. Hey, even though we're slowing down, those of you that are watching by TV, you can indeed call in. All right. So it looks like we're having a problem right now. Everything that we're trying with Facebook to load it up, we're not having any success with it. So we're just going to have to write that off for today. But we're going to continue with our discussion of the nation of gods and earths, the 5 percenters. Now this is an organization that I recently became aware of, and I want to thank our brother from out of North Carolina for bringing this organization to my attention. Very interesting, and we're going to read a little information about them so that we can just share a little knowledge about them. And most of what I'll be reading tonight comes off of the internet, and the website that is going to come from is LA5%.wordpress.com. And the best way to find that website is to just Google The Bomb, that's THEBOMB, The Bomb, Greatest Story Never Told. Never, with an N, N-E-V-E-R, never told. So most of the information you'll hear me reading tonight comes from that, The Bomb, The Greatest Story Never Told. All right. Okay, today there are thousands of young black men and women who are members of the nation of gods and earths. And the symbol that you see on your screen right now, that is a symbol of the name of gods and earths. And this was born, at least this organization was started by a gentleman named Clarence Smith, who was born in 1928 in Danville, Virginia. Okay, in the 1940s, and there's the man Clarence 13X, and also known, he changed his name later to Allah. So Allah, also known as Clarence 13X. In the 1940s, Allah's mother, Mary, moved to New York for employment. She rented an apartment in Harlem. In 1946, Allah came north to join his mother and older brothers. In 1950, Allah joined the army and went to fight in the Korean War. While he was away, his wife Dora had become a Muslim and entered the Nation of Islam under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. When he returned, he too accepted the teachings of Islam, and he joined her at Temple number 7 under Minister Malcolm X. Allah had been a man who always thought for himself. He was no follower. At this point in time, the teachings of the Nation of Islam was that W.D. Ford, the man who came to North America and taught Elijah Muhammad, was the supreme being, Allah. Okay, now, this is, I think this is the first time I actually saw a picture or image of W.D. Ford, but that's a photo of W.D. Ford. At the time, however, the lessons that the Muslims studied, which were written by Elijah Muhammad and W.D. Ford, clearly stated throughout that the original man is Allah, the supreme being, the black man. The lessons also state that there is no mystery God and that we should lose no time searching for that which does not exist. And so Allah left the temple. Allah, also known as Clarence 13X, he left the temple. He knew from his lessons in the temple that the original man was the supreme being, God. Supreme means the Most High. Being means to exist. God, therefore, is the name given to the highest form of existence, the black man. Now, when I was studying and I was reading this name, the black man, okay, that immediately what came to mind was the image of a black man. But the more I studied, the understanding that I came to embrace was not that word black man denoting a human with dark skin, but black man in the same sense that scientists use the term black hole. Okay? Black man, that from which everything was generated, the same as scientists with this black hole and the beginning of everything, the beginning of the universe, this Big Bang theory, everything coming out of a black hole. So the more I read about the nation of gods and earth, the more I came to embrace that understanding of the term black man. This supreme form of life is the vehicle through which Allah's will is made manifest. Okay, now this is some of the stuff that helped me to come to that kind of understanding. Okay? There is no substance in the universe or world that the original black man's body does not consist of. Okay? Nothing in the world that's not a part of the original black man. Okay? Nothing in the world. Everything is a part of one being. Even the forces we see around us, above us, and below us have their beginning within us. Okay, now this is the little part right here. This leads us to the 5%ers. He also knew from his lessons that 85% of the people were mentally blind, deaf and dumb, while 10% of the people were devils who kept the 85% ignorant, and that 5% were the righteous people who would lead the people from certain destruction. What he now realized was that this was applied to him individually, that he as an individual was God and therefore could not sit by idle and depend on a mystery God to do what he himself was blessed with the innate abilities to do. He changed his name from Clarence 13X to Allah and went to the streets of Harlem to do God's job. God's job, as he saw it, would be to reach his blind, deaf, and dumb people, and from them raise the 5% nation. Okay, so going back to the theory that was taught, and that was that 85% of the population were ignorant. They were deaf and dumb and ignorant. And when it says ignorant, you're not speaking about not being able to spell or read or write. It's speaking about a particular type of knowledge. A particular type of knowledge. And this is getting to that theory that we find not only in the nation of gods and earth, but a theory held even in Christianity, that there's certain knowledge that everybody doesn't have, particularly a certain spiritual knowledge that everyone doesn't have. Jesus Christ spoke about some folks whose system just wasn't strong enough to digest that knowledge. You know, Jesus Christ spoke about some folks that have eyes but can't see. Okay? So we see that same refrain in the nation of gods and men about this knowledge. But then what was taught or is taught in the nation of gods and earths is that of the 15% that do have that knowledge, 10 of those percent want to keep it to themselves and do negative things with it. You know, they talk about knowledge is power, but then there's another 5% that want to share that knowledge. And that 5%, that's where the term the 5%ers come from. Okay? And just studying a little bit more about Clarence X, who changed his name to Allah, and there's the symbol again for the 5% nation of gods and earths. And you see that earths, it's a plural. You see that S on there. And we talked about the supreme mathematics. Okay, so Allah, Clarence X, developed the science of supreme mathematics as the basis of his teachings and the key to unlock the minds of black youth. Supreme mathematics are the 10 principles which correspond to the 9 basic units and the 0 in our number system. Using the supreme mathematics and the supreme alphabet, which are principles that correspond to the 26 letters that Allah in justice created together, he taught the young how to break down and form profound relationships between significant experiences within life. Since the number 1 represents the principle of knowledge in the supreme mathematics, the black seed being the first seed was referred to as the knowledge seed. The number 9 represents the principle of born in the supreme mathematics. 9 is the highest number in the numerical system, thus it means to be complete, just as it takes 9 months for a baby to be birthed into this world. Thus these 9 black youth came to be known as the firstborn. Okay. And what you see on the screen now, this supreme understanding, and on the left of your screen, you see the supreme mathematics number from 1 through 9, and then the 0, number 1. It might be a little bit hard to make out on the screen, but number 1 being knowledge, number 2, wisdom, number 3, understanding, number 4, culture of or freedom, number 5, power, number 6, equality, 7, God, 8, build or destroy, 9, born, and 0 being cipher. And the supreme alphabet, we're not going to go through all of that but you can look it up, the Supreme Alphabet. Okay, according to Allah, Clarence 13X, he said that the future of all the human families of the planet and mankind in general depends on the success of Allah's nation of the 5%. 5%ers, Allah's firstborn, became very powerful and dynamic young men and brought hundreds of black youth into the knowledge of self. They became known as Allah's 5%, or the 5%ers, or the 5% nation. In the two previous years, from June of 1969, Allah had risen to become a very powerful figure within New York City. He had achieved a kind of international celebrity status. Canadian television did a story on him. A sociologist from Sweden interviewed him, and he had plans to meet with Chinese representatives on June 20th, 1969. In 1967, Allah began to teach the brothers that they were gods also, as he had realized in himself. He had them change their names from Muslim names to come in the name of Allah as their family name, and to take a name from their mathematics or alphabets to go with it. Thus, for example, a 5%er with a name like One Islam was renamed Allah. Hakim was renamed Born Allah. Dihu was renamed Knowledge Allah, and so on. Allah was very particular at distinguishing his nation from the Muslims. He taught the sisters that the earth is the black woman's twin in nature. Thus, 5%er women are called Earths, E-A-R-T-H-S. The black woman is symbolic to the earth in many ways. The earth is the only planet in our solar system that is capable of reproducing life. The moon, the earth's counterpart, reflects the light of the sun in much the same way that the woman reflects the teachings of her man. 5%er women wear long dresses so that they are clothed with 3/4 of their body covered, symbolic of the earth being 3/4 covered with water. Earths were encouraged to study nutrition so that they could provide a healthy environment for their family. Allah taught all of his nation, gods and earths, that the way for the black nation to regain its position of greatness in the world again was to take care of each and teach the babies. So the males were called gods and the females were called earths. On the night of June 12, 1969, Allah was at his street academy speaking with his 5%ers. He spoke with them well into the night about male-female relationships. Those who were present still remember to this day the euphoric feeling that he left them with, a feeling so good that they didn't notice that the yellow cab driver whose taxi that Allah got into wasn't the cab of Allah that he usually left with. Shortly after Allah had left, word came back that he had been brutally gunned down on the elevator of Martin Luther King Towers on 112th Street in Harlem. Okay, so that's a real rough introduction to the nation of gods and earths, or the nation of the 5%ers. I didn't really do it justice, so I encourage all of you to do your own research and find out a little bit more about the nation of gods and earths. Okay, tonight our words of inspiration will be coming out of the book of Genesis, chapter 47, verses 22 through 31. All right, verse 22. Matter of fact, before we go there, back up a little bit. Last week we were reading, we had continued reading about, actually it was week before last, because we didn't read the scriptures last week. But week before last, we left off whereas the famine in the world had gotten so great that all of the Hebrews that had migrated to Egypt, they had run out of food, and after they ran out of food, they bought more food from Pharaoh, after they bought more food, they ran out of that food, and they got to the point where they didn't have any money to buy any more food from Pharaoh. And it wasn't only the Hebrews, but we read that the Egyptians also, the average, ordinary Egyptians also ran out of food, and they had to buy food from Pharaoh. Now remember, Pharaoh owned the food, but the middleman, the one that was in charge of selling the food and distributing the food, that middleman was Joseph, okay, who was a Hebrew, Jacob's son. Okay? So where we left off last week is that all the people, the Hebrews and the Egyptians alike, had gotten to the point where they had spent all their money. They didn't have any more money to buy food. And then we read that the next thing they did, because they didn't have any more money to buy food, the next thing they did was gave Pharaoh all of their livestock, all their cattle, all their sheep, all the animals. So all of their possessions. So that they could buy some food so they could live. So now they gave Pharaoh all their money. They gave Pharaoh all of their livestock. And now they're running out of food again. So they're starving. They're getting ready to die from starvation. But they did have something else valuable. And that other valuable thing they had was land. See, when we read that in the scripture, the understanding that I get out of that is that this isn't like some of those kingdoms that we read about, some of those European kingdoms, whereas the king owned all the property. The understanding that I get is that the people were actually property owners. And that's a very important when it comes down to building and maintaining a society, when you have the people themselves owning property. But we read that the famine was so great, people had spent all their money buying food, giving up all their cattle and livestock buying food. And now their last possession was their land. That's their last possession. And we read that they gave their land to Pharaoh. And once they gave their land to Pharaoh, the scripture tells us that Pharaoh started moving the people to different areas of the nation, different areas of the country. He didn't kick them out. He let them stay there. But now, since he owned the land, he could tell people where they could live. Right? So now people are dependent upon Pharaoh not only for their food, but also for their shelter. And that's where we left off 2 weeks ago. So now let's pick it back up, and we're in Genesis 47 and 22. Now look what it says here. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion, which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their lands. And I'm stopping there for a minute, and I'm stopping there for a minute because next week, and I'm gonna write this down. Okay, next week we're going to, in our religious spiritual discussion, and I'm writing this down, and I'm inviting you to do the same thing. Okay, next week, the priest. Next week, our topic for discussion will be the priest. And I write that down, and you see how God works and connects different things. We see the special position that the priests held in Egypt. See, they were so special that they didn't have to buy their food. They didn't have to give money for their food. They didn't have to give up their livestock for their food. They didn't have to sell their land for their food. See, the scriptures say that Pharaoh gave them a portion. So it was something special about those priests. And when I said about the way God just kind of ties things together, we were reading a few minutes ago, when we were reading about the nation of gods and earths, their philosophy, their teachings, being that there's certain knowledge that 85% of the population don't have. Certain knowledge. And there's 15% of the population that has that knowledge. And 10% want to use it for their own benefit, and the other 5% want to share that knowledge and help the whole group. So we're reading, and we're reading even in the Bible, going all the way back to the days of Jacob and Joseph, reading about these priests that have a special position, and that special position that they have is because of the knowledge that they have, the knowledge that the common, ordinary citizen didn't have. And not only are there certain individuals in Egypt that were called priests that have this special knowledge, but we read even in the Hebrews that there were certain folks in the Hebrews that had this special knowledge. And we read how they, because of the special knowledge that they had, how they were treated with esteem, treated differently. So we see that same theme running not only through the Egyptians, not only through the Hebrews, but we see the same thing today. The priests today, if you're Catholic, the priests have a certain lifestyle. We know the priests have homes that are provided to them by the church. We know that the number one priest, the Pope, how the lifestyle that he lives. We know in a lot of Protestant faiths that there are a number of, they don't call them priests, but they call them bishops and pastors and reverends. The type of lifestyle that they have, some of them have. So throughout history and throughout different cultures, those folks that have this certain knowledge have been treated differently. And we see that, and we're reading about that tonight, how differently, how privileged those priests were in Pharaoh's day. All right. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day in your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. Wait a minute. See, I got to read ahead a little bit and get some understanding on that, because what it seems like I'm reading What it seems like I'm reading, I might be wrong. It seems like I'm reading is that Joseph done went out from somewhere or another. He done got money. Wait a minute. No, wait, let's read this again. Let's slow down. Then Joseph said unto the people, behold, I have bought you this day in your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. I got to stop there because the Spirit just working on me. You know, metaphors and allegories. Number one, Joseph is saying that he's bought them. So I misspoke a little bit earlier. If my understanding of this verse is right, I misspoke. I said the last possession they had was their land. But here it is in verse 23, Joseph is saying that not only has he bought the land for Pharaoh, but he's saying he has bought them. Is this saying, we're going to have to read and get some more understanding, because it seems like he's saying these people have sold themselves to Pharaoh. And now Joseph is saying, now look, I own you, now I own your land, now I'm going to give you some seeds to plant. Okay, now that's giving it a carnal understanding. You know, a physical understanding. But now, could it be, and we know that the scripture writer likes to write in metaphors and allegories, could it be what Joseph is telling these folks? He's going to give them seeds, not seeds to grow plants, but seeds to grow beliefs and ideas, seeds to grow this religion of the Hebrews in that soil of Egypt. All right, let's see. Let's read and see. And it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give the 5th part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for food for your little ones. All right, now this is sounding like sharecroppers. All right, so Pharaoh owns everything now. But just so that you don't get mad at Pharaoh, Pharaoh's going to be benevolent. Okay? Pharaoh's going to be kind and gracious. You see, Pharaoh owns everything, so he doesn't have to do anything. But just to get on your good side, Pharaoh's going to give you these seeds, let you plant them, and the crops that come up, all Pharaoh wants is 20%. Okay? 20%, the 5th part. Just 20%. See, Pharaoh could have been greedy. Pharaoh could have said 50-50. Pharaoh could have been even more greedy and said, I'm not giving you nothing. But Pharaoh, only 20%. And the rest of it, you keep for yourself. All right. And they said, now see I'm talking about Pharaoh getting on the good side? And they said, thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. Now, Now we get a little bit more understanding. See, a lot of us that have been raised in the church, the Christian church, or have read the Bible, or heard somebody else read the Bible, we kind of knew about the Hebrews being slaves in Egypt and being slaves for 400 years. A lot of us that had never read the Bible for ourselves never really knew how the Hebrews got into Egypt in the first place. Then we never knew how they became slaves. Now, because we've been reading the Bible for ourselves, we've learned that they got into Egypt in the first place because they came into Egypt. And they came into Egypt because the land where they lived, the country where they lived, Canaan, they didn't have any food there, and they had food in Egypt. That's how they got to Egypt in the first place. And now we're reading how they got to be servants. It doesn't say slaves, servants of Pharaoh, and how they got to be owned by Pharaoh because they sold themselves into bondage. You know, some of you may remember the beginning of America. And when you were in history class, you might have read about, or heard your teacher talk about, there were slaves that were predominantly people that were kidnapped in Africa, put in chains, and brought to this continent and forced to work. But then you might also remember that there were some other folks that came to America, and they weren't slaves, but they were servants, and they were called indentured servants. And these indentured servants were people that voluntarily, for the most part, voluntarily sold themselves into servitude for the benefit of being brought by ship from Europe to the American continent. And once they had worked long enough to pay off their debt, then they were free people. But as long as they still had that debt, they were servants. So now we see those Hebrews coming into Egypt, similar to indentured servants. All right, we're going to have to, let's see how far we can get. We're getting close to the end of the show. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day that Pharaoh should have the fifth part, except the land of the priests only, which became not Pharaoh's. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein, and grew and multiplied exceedingly. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the whole age of Jacob was 147 years. And the time drew nigh that Israel must die. And he called his son Joseph and said unto him, If now I have found grace in thy sight, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray thee, in Egypt, but I will lie with my fathers and thou shalt carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as thou hast said. And he said, swear unto me. And he sware unto him. And Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head. All right, so we're going to close out. We're going to close out there. And just to recap a little bit, we see that even in their capacity as servants, the scripture tells us that the Hebrews multiplied and became exceedingly, and as it said, they became, and I'm going to see if I can get that, they became exceedingly. Let's see. I'm still playing with this. Still playing with it. They grew and multiplied exceedingly. So even under adverse conditions, God can multiply you and multiply you exceedingly. It may be some adversity that you have to go through in your life. Maybe some hard times that you have to go through. As we saw the Hebrews going through some times that were so hard that they sold everything that they had, including themselves. And we see how God brought them through that and blessed them so that they had possessions and grew and multiplied exceedingly. So that being a testament to the fact that God is indeed almighty, the same God that blessed the Hebrews is the same God that exists today. And I pray to that God blesses you no matter what kind of adversity you may have to go through, that God blesses you and yours with peace. Until we meet again here next week on The Message, may God Almighty bless you and yours with peace.